week's episode of Coffee with the Journalist brought to you by OnePitch. The guests on our show include some of the most notable journalists who write about topics including technology, lifestyle and culture, health, science, consumer products, business news, and beauty and wellness. We discuss the type of stories they cover, their thoughts on exclusives and embargoes, their favorite pitches, and how they connect with sources. Head to onepitch.co and look for the video page to learn more about our new video series featuring journalists from the show. Today's guest on Coffee with the Journalist is Ben Bergman from Insider. Ben is a senior correspondent at Insider covering venture capital and startups. During the episode, Ben talks about why he's working with familiar sources, the correlation between subject lines and headlines, advice for tying your pitch to recent stories, and more. Let's hear from Ben now.
Welcome, everyone. This is Coffee with a Journalist. Hopefully you're here because you want to hear from a journalist. Maybe you're doing some publicity or some PR, or you're a publicist, and that is the reason for this show. So we hear directly and live from our great publicists, well, actually our great media friends, hopefully listened to by publicists, so we understand how to have better relationships with reporters and media. That's the whole why of why we started this little show. And I also started this OnePitch, this whole thing, because I wanted a way for more publicists to get to better relationships with journalists. I also run an agency named BAM, and we work with all venture-backed technology companies. And that's why we're here. By the way, I'm Beck Bamberger. And with us today is Ben Bergman, also another BB. I'm noticing on the screen, Ben, it says BB is talking to BB. I love it. Ben coming to us live from actually Seattle on a beautiful day, it looks like. Ben Bergman is the senior correspondent now of all the VC and startup landscape at Insider. Welcome, Ben, from sunny Seattle, shockingly.
So good to be here. Seattle's beautiful in the summer. Make sure to come in the summer, December, January. It's a different story, but nothing better than a Northwest day.
Oh, yeah, with the trees and the pines. Well, Ben, thank you again for being here. I know we work with you at BAM. I know you. You've been to some of our things we've done. So hi. And real quick, I like to now ask at the top, just to orient the focus on the outlet. What does Insider cover, previously known as Business Insider?
As our name suggests, it's quite insider. So we are trying to talk about the things that people are talking about inside these companies. We're trying to be, appeal to readers who, are smart people who are interested in what's going on inside startups and tech companies, but also, employees inside the companies themselves, and also the investors and the founders and executives. And, I think we're going to do, as our name suggests, stories that are a lot more granular than you'd see in the New York Times or Wall Street Journal or other business tech publications. But, our stories about how people are doing, who's up, who's down, do really well. Our stories about money, who's raising, how much people are making, how people can make more money are always very popular.
Mm-hmm. And if you like the venture capital space, man, is Ben your guy.
You're too kind.
This is the guy. So, okay, Ben, your inbox. How crazy is it in there?
I'm scared to look, but I have to every morning, of course, and I look at it. But yeah, it's a scary thing because there's just a ton of inbound, as they say, that comes in, and I have to look at it all because there's things that come in that are, not just spam, but are really important to look at. And then there's, as you might expect, a ton of pitches.
Yes. So how many pitches are we talking a day?
I would say I probably get about 50 pitches a day.
Oh, only 50. I don't think that's that horrible. I've heard worse. Okay, 50, but like 50 legit pitches or 50, some including spray and pray ones?
I think a lot of those are spray and pray.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
And maybe I've filtered out the other ones by now. But yeah, it's probably, and then maybe 20 that are more actually really targeted to me and what I do.
That's kind of a low percentage. Not good. What do you do with the pitches that you're like, okay, not a fit? Do you just delete
Yeah, I delete them or just, go on to the next one. I mean, I try to like, when I wake up in the morning very quickly, because that's when most of the stuff comes in, especially since I'm on the West Coast. But I very quickly, go through everything. And honestly, a lot of times we'll like not even make it past like the subject head, because, a lot of the stuff I get isn't relevant to what I cover. And so I can pretty quickly dispense with that, and we have a pretty narrow focus here, and one of the overriding things about what I do and a lot of us do at Insider is everything I do is behind the paywall, so it has to be something that people can't get anywhere else. So we have a very metrics driven, so we have a very clear idea about what our readers are interested in. And so, we don't do a lot of the other stuff I think publications do, because we know our readers just aren't into that.
You've got some salacious headlines too, by the way, Ben. Like, for example,
Oh, I don't know if
yeah, I know.
we prefer the word
No, not
salacious,
salacious. Maybe salacious,
impactful.
but eye-catching, impactful. Where you're like, holy cat! Like, I want to read all of the. I have read many, but like this, the new Walking Dead. Over 1,000 venture funds were formed in the past 4 years. Now many could turn into zombies as LP fundraising dries up. Like, oh God, Quote another one. It felt like the Black Mirror episode, the inside account of how Bird laid off 406 people in 2 minutes via a Zoom webinar. Like, oh man, anybody who's like, oh, what's venture capital like? Yeah, you got to read up on Ben's stuff. Okay, back to the impacts. Let's focus. What are some of the best subject lines you've received, like even today, or that stand out in your memory?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, I mean, it's in some ways not about the subject line, but I was trying to think about like, I almost never do like fundraising stories, but I've done two in the past 2 weeks, and or even this week. I had one today. And I think, and that was because I had, a relationship with the people, and like you, and I know them, and, they've been helpful, and I know that they send me stuff that is good and that is more targeted. So that's a lot of it. It's like, oh, I know this person and it's a specific reason why I'm doing it. But I think, the best pitches, like we're very into, as you notice, like we're very into the headlines here. And when we're pitching stories internally, a lot of it is like, okay, just write me the headline. Because if you don't have a good headline and you can't, sell your story in a headline, then you probably don't have a good story. So if I see like a pitch that has like something that I would see as a good headline for us, then I'm going to be a lot more likely to read that.
So write your subject line like the headline.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting approach. Okay. Are there 3 aspects you love or want to see in every pitch, Ben?
Yeah. I mean, I would say the main things to include are, why it's important, and also, like who we can talk to. And, a lot of times people will be like, okay, like this company that Jason Calacanis backed raised such and such. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, can I talk to Jason? And they're like, oh no, like he's not actually available. So I want to know like, who's behind it, but also like who they're offering and what's available, and then also want to know like, the timing, like when is this happening? And as much like, numbers and information about, because I'm writing about deals a lot of times. So want to have like that as, but, the numbers aren't enough. There has to be like for us, like an interesting, compelling story there that's not going to be told elsewhere.
Okay. What else in the pitch, if ideally? Any bonus? Like, ooh, and I see a pitch and it links the press kit, really wins you over.
Well, I think it's like when people are like, oh, well, you've reported on, they can pretty easily see what I've done, because everything is on my author page and I tweet every story. So hopefully you have like, it's helpful, I think, if you have a sense of like what kind of stories I can do. And if you can genuinely say, okay, I saw you did this story about like employees, being shortchanged on their startup options. Here's like another twist on that. Or I saw a story about like, zombie VC funds. Here's like, a way to like, here's a new take on that, or someone else you should talk to. I think that's always like very helpful. Like a lot of times people, try to do that and it's like, it doesn't actually have any connection to stories I've done. And they'll be like, I saw you did this story on VC funds drying up. Here's a story about, a SaaS company raising $12 million, and it doesn't really connect, and we can like pretty easily see through that. And I appreciate the attempt, but if you can actually tie it to like stories we've done, I think that's very helpful.
Yeah, got you.
Today's interview will continue after this brief message brought to you by OnePitch. Are you curious to see the unique ways OnePitch helps PR professionals and marketers pitch journalists? Head to onepitch.co to learn about our new OnePitch score and see how easy it is to find the right journalist to pitch your news to. Sign up for your free account today. Now, back to today's episode.
Ben, you do have some stories on here that are exclusives. So I believe you do like exclusives, but tell us about your preference for exclusives versus embargoes or whatnot.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a funny thing because, if we're going to do fundraising, which we don't do very much, just because, as I said, we're very metrics driven, and we can see our, readers are not really interested in that. But, if we do it, it definitely, has to be, an exclusive. So we're not really going to do it otherwise. But even if, we get offered an exclusive, which we do a lot, we pass on the vast majority of those. But, if we do it, having the exclusive and the embargo is helpful so that we have enough time to plan and to do the interviews and to write the story. If someone says, okay, we're giving you an embargo until, tomorrow, that's not very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Ideally, how much time would you want ahead of an exclusive? Like, yes, I want the exclusive. How much time?
I think probably for like a, just like fundraising one, probably about like maybe a week.
Okay.
Would be good.
That's not too long. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want like too long.
Yeah, of course.
But it's something maybe like a little bit more bigger or something, maybe a little longer, but I think about a week is good.
Okay. I like that. Ben, you mentioned earlier the couple pieces you recently did were because you knew the founders, they were helpful, you had a relationship in place. How does anyone build a relationship with you, especially when you're hanging out in sunny Seattle?
Well, actually, the relationships were with the PR people. They were not with the founders.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I tell that as inspiration. So yes, I mean, there's a lot of, great PR people who who are helpful to me, and hopefully, it's mutually beneficial to me. But yeah, I'd say, like meeting people at, conferences like yours and all sorts of other things. Like I'm going to Code Conference next week. I was just at like LA Tech Week. So always like seeing people in person is helpful. And then, but yeah, it's also just about like, providing like a mutually beneficial thing. I mean, obviously we all have like, our interests are not, completely aligned, and we're looking for, I think sometimes like different stuff, but I think there's overlap there, and that's where we can do it. And I think especially if like people can be helpful on other stories that maybe they're not like as excited to pitch, but if I'm like asking for like some sort of comment or for some, interview for like a story I'm working on, and then someone comes back and like pitches me something, I'm going to definitely be more, likely to like be receptive to that than if I've like never worked with them before, or if they've been like unhelpful for another story I've been working on.
Ooh, how would you define unhelpful?
Well, just, I spend the bulk of my time doing like, in tech investigations and longer term stories. And so if I'm like asking to like speak to someone, like this happened recently with someone who was like pitching me a tech founder, and, I was like, okay, I really want to talk to them for this story. And, they're like, no, you can't, and it's not stories, even about them or going to, reflect poorly on them, but I just, wanted to like speak to them and they wouldn't. So, I'm just saying that it's like, we sort of remember if someone is like helpful in those situations where we're doing, those kinds of stories.
Uh-huh. Noted. So, and speed, I also hear often is so helpful. Not to be someone
I mean, I
like,
reached yes. I mean, I reached out to like, 7 companies yesterday just for what I thought was like pretty simple query. And, one of them got back to me very quickly. And I was like, you are the best. Like, thank you. And they were like, just commented on background. But I was like, this is super helpful. The other 6 like have still not responded. So that one, I'm like, there's a special place in heaven for, PR people like that who are able to just respond quickly and accurately.
So good. Okay, Ben, I have a fun fill in the blank section here. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready? Okay, here we go. My favorite sources always.
Tell me something I haven't heard before.
You'll never get a response from me if
you are just spraying and praying.
Yes. You can follow up with me if
you haven't heard from me, I would say it's okay to, politely follow up in 2 or 3 days.
The appropriate amount of lead time for a story is, we covered that, but just in general for you.
About a week.
About a week. And my favorite stories to write are
stories that are uncovering something that has not been covered before, or something that people are talking about and kind of know is there, but has never been written about publicly.
Okay, that's a pretty good list. I hope everyone's paying attention so we know. Okay, Ben, totally unrelated, but we like to ask all journalists, because since you're consummate story consumers and writers, you must also enjoy stories, we imagine. So are there any podcasts, Netflix series, stories, books, we'll take anything, that you're loving and reading right now?
Yes. I mean, I really like Land of the Giants that my friends at Verge do, and I'm always learning stuff from that. I would say I just, I really loved We Crashed, and I loved The Dropout, and I just finished The Staircase.
How was The Staircase?
Don't watch it at night, but no, it's very good.
Okay, that's what I heard. Okay.
It's great. Colin Firth and everyone, and Toni Collette are so great. And
another true crime one, by the way.
Yes. And
this is another one that someone else just mentioned, true crime, just earlier on another recording. So yeah.
And then I would say also a little closer to what we do is industry. I like.
Oh yes, I've been in industry too.
I like that a lot.
Yes. Gosh, Ben, this is good. Thank you for telling us. And I hear the sirens in the background. So we will wrap this up. Ben, what do you think is the future of journalism?
I mean, look, I would be a richer man if I knew exactly that. But I think, it is becoming more specialized. And you see, reporters who are known more, for what they do than the outlet they work at, with a lot of people who've gone to Substack and other places in that regard, and have more of their brand than a brand just the New York Times, which still is a great brand per se. So I think, and I think a lot of other things, it's just becoming more narrow, very specialized. And I think, that is, and there's so much out there, which is great. I mean, and there's actually, so much great tech journalism right now. So I think you'll probably, yes. Sure. So it's a little overwhelming, but it has to be really good,
I agree.
Just to stand out from the pack. So hopefully you will see, more great journalism and more people, paying for great journalism to sustain it.
I hope so too, Ben, because then who else will I bug like you? So this is good. Ben Bergman, thank you for being here. If anyone wants to know about all things VC, Ben is your person. As I said, he's senior correspondent at Insider, covering all the crazy shenanigans of tech and beyond. Thank you, Ben. Thanks for hanging out for a little bit.
Thanks so much. Happy to do it anytime.
Enjoy that sunny Seattle. I love it. What an endorsement. I saw a little video of it that you earlier showed me. So I believe it. For real. Awesome.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Coffee with the Journalist featuring Ben Bergman from Insider. Make sure to subscribe for new episode updates on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. And if you have a moment, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts to share your thoughts about the show and today's guest. To learn more about the latest tools on OnePitch and to subscribe to our weekly podcast newsletter, head to our website at onepitch.co. We'll see you all next week with even more insights about the journalists you want to learn more about. Until then, start great stories.